Hei te timatanga te kupu I te atu, te kupu ko te atu, te kupu I te atu, anō tēnei kupu I te timatanga. Nāna nei ngā mea katoa I hanga te rangi te whenua, kore nei te I mea hanga te rangi te whenua, koe te hanga nei o ngā mea katoa. Mai te pū e hua tōne, hanga e te tangata ki arite ki tana ke āhua, whakahangi e kona ponga ihu, te manua ora ka wairi ora te tangata ati hei, mauri ora. Tua ke au I runga te taumata o ngā kōrero katoa ko wehi atu ki te atu. Te timatanga o te whakaaro nui. Tēnei rā te tuku atu ngā reo whakamoi te whakawhetai ki ai o mana mana ki tanga. Uihe nei e ia ki rungi a tātou. O tēnei rangi pai I humai nei ki a tātou. Nāna nei whakawātea ngā huarahi. I tai pai kōtou ki te karanga o tēnei whare, karanga o tēnei whānau, te whare tauiro o Pētere Hama. Hare mai, hare mai, hare mai. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and God was the Word. In the beginning the Word was with God. He has created all things in heaven and on earth, and nothing that has been created in heaven and earth has not been created by Him. From the dust of the earth He created man in His image and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and we became spiritual beings. Ah, 'tis life indeed. I stand on the pinnacle of all oratory and declare that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom. And we stand here today and we give Him thanks, we give Him praise. We acknowledge Him for the blessings, the multitude of blessings that He's poured upon us. Even the blessings that we didn't recognize as blessings, we thank Him for. We thank Him for clearing the roads that you were able to travel here safely in response to this whare karakia and to the whānau of Bethlehem Tertiary Institute. We say welcome, welcome, welcome. Ai tikana te miha ki tēnei whare tawhito, tēnei whare karakia kaumātua o tauranga moana. Tahi rau whātekau mā ono, tōna pakeke. A ko I patuia I ngā mati kuku o mahuika ka tūtono, ka tūtono, ka tūtono. Nō re te whare e tū nei, te pape e tū ana nei a koe, nei rā te mihi atu ki a koe. So we acknowledge this senior House of the Lord in Tauranga Moana, Holy Trinity of the Anglican faith, 146 years old. While it was attacked by fire, it came out of those ashes and continues to stand today. Nā he ruru hau mō tātou katoa. Whakahai e tio a tātou kaupapa I raro te maru maru o tō tātou ariki au kraiti. And we are blessed to be able to come into its bosom and to fulfill and to complete many of our themes and special days like today under the blessing of the church, under the blessing of the Lord. Nō re runga tērā, nei rā te hau kāinga tauranga mōna mi hatu ki a kōtou I hare tawhiti mai, I hare tata mai. Ngā waka kei roti a kōtou, ngā iwi o tērā takiwā, o tērā takiwā. Kōtou ngā iwi mai tā wāhi, ko rau mai ki tauranga noho ai, I runga tērā kōrero, ma te kāinga tahi ora kāinga rua. Hara mai, hara mai, hara mai. And so today we welcome you as a tangata whenua of Tauranga on this special occasion, whether you've come from just over the bridge or the southernmost part of our island or the most northern part. If you come from another nation, you decided that Aotearoa is your new home. The saying that when one door closes in a house, that you choose to close, another door opens. And Aotearoa has opened for you to be part of its people. Again, hara mai, hara mai, hara mai. a hoko te wai, hui tahi ai tātou, te kaupapa hui tahi ai tātou, kāre mā te ware ki a rātou, a ko ngalo atu. Wa tātou tini aitua, ne rā te mihi atu ki a koe te ino atu ki a kota. Kaue mai I roto I o kota ngākau I roto o kota pai mahara. E rā I tukut atu e kota, e mihi atu e kota, I poro aki e kota, ai tukuna atu ki te rua kouiwi. Kaue mai nā whare ki tia, I te papa e takoto nei wangina mata. Ia o mata mate I tēnei tā. Ke tangitahi tātou ki a rātou, mea ki atu ki a rātou, ai ngā mate haere, haere, haere. And so no matter where we might gather together, for whatever purpose we might gather, we never forget those that have passed on before us. So we invite you today to bring with you in your hearts, your spirits and your memories, those that you have said farewell to, those that you have sent on. And we say, lay them down emotionally between us to join with those that we have grieved for, those that we have sorrowed for, and those that we have sent on. And together, we can say to them all, to you, our beloved, farewell, farewell, farewell. Ao ko ngaro ki te tirohanga, kai te ora tōna, I roto te ngākau. While you may no longer be here to be gazed upon, but we still carry you in our hearts. Me ki atu I roto, ngā kanohi o ngā tamariki mokopuna, I oe te mai rātou. And many of them are, their faces are still held today, physically, in their children and their grandchildren. Nō reira, ai mi atu ki a rātou, no te mea nātou, I parata huarahi, nā rātou, I awhi kōtau ki te eke ki te taumata. Kore te mea nui, I ara koe, I tai, me tō kotahitanga ki runga tēnei angi tū. Engari maha tonu, ngā ringa awhina I a koe. And so we acknowledge them also because they have made sacrifices that these graduates today can be here. And we say that their success is not theirs alone, but the success of many who challenged them, cajoled them, disciplined them, maybe said other words to them that we don't say in this Friday, but they have been challenged by. They accepted those challenges, and today they stand on the pinnacle of success. Nō tēnei ata mihi nui ki a kōtau ko kōtau rā, ka tino kaupapa o tēnei rā, ngā matua whainga o tēnei rā, kōtau ngā tau I rā. I nā nahi, he ako ngā koe, te rangi nei, e kai whakaho koe. And today we want to acknowledge and honour these that have stood the test, passed the test, came in as fledgling little birds with no feathers, but today they fly on fully feathered wings wherever they want to go, because they've been equipped to go there. So to each and every one of you, e mihi atu ki a kōtau. Tēnā kōtau, tēnā kōtau, tēnā kōtau. Me te mihi atu ki enei, a pauako, ma ahorangi, ma pukenga, I whanga atu o rātou mohiotanga, o rātou mātauranga ki roa. Enei, nō re te mihi atu ki rātou. And so also we acknowledge the lecturers, the professors, the administration staff, all those that have been instrumental in making sure that you have got the best to be able to be a success. Anō o te kōrero, e ara kōtau I tū, I roto o kōtau kotahitanga. So we can say truly that you haven't been able to achieve what you have achieved today on your own. But you've been blessed by people that have been put around you. Nō re runga tere mi atu ki a tātou katoa, hui nei, I raro te maru o tō tātou mate nui te rangi. I runga te karanga o ene, tēnā kōtau, tēnā kōtau, tēnā kōtau, kai te wai. Te aloha, te whakapo. pai to mātou matanui te rangi, koro oi tia tēne wā mātou kaupapa i runga tō ata whaitanga. Tuku mai tō wairu hei arihi mātou he hare pai hare tika tēnei kaupapa o mātou ki rongo rātou ki tō kōrero ki rātou. Pai rawa atu. E taku pononga pai. E taku pononga pono. E pono koe ki ngā mea rua. A tēnei rā, ka whakaranga tira koe i runga ngā mea maha. Tomo mai ki taku whale i roto tāri koa. May you hear the Lord say to you today, well done, my good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in the little things. Today, I am going to make you master over much, much more, that you might enter into my house with joy. Nō reira te matua, I runga te ingoa tō tama a Ukraiti. Amen. Kia ora tātou.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kei te mihi kia kōroa i ngā kai karanga, tēnā kōroa. Kei te mihi kia koe e te rangatira, tēnā koe e te mātua. Tēnā rawa atu kōroa o koutou i ngā kai ārahi. E te iwi, nau mai haere mai ki tēnei whakapōtaitanga. Haere mai runga e te rā whakahira o te tau. Nau mai ki tēnei huihunga tāhua mō te wharetau iro o Pitarahima. Nō reira tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Special welcome to our graduates, supporters, to family, to whānau and friends. Welcome. Welcome to the VIP guests who have supported our students and the Institute over many years. Graduation is the high point in our calendar year when we together, staff, board, family, whānau, friends and our wider BTI community celebrate and publicly recognise the huge accomplishments of our graduates in completing their qualification. Finally, this is it. Graduation day. After all the years of hard work, perseverance, being open to head, heart and hands learning, even navigating a global pandemic, you are now about to have your achievement formally recognised. Well done. Tēnō rāwe o mahi. In saying well done and congratulations to you, our graduates, we would also like to acknowledge the support and encouragement you have received from loved ones, from professionals within your respective fields. So to all the husbands, wives, partners, parents, grandparents, children, siblings, cousins, supervisors, PLPs, associate teachers, subject tutors, and so forth, we thank you. You have very much been a key part of your graduates' success today. From all of us here at BTI, we say thank you. A couple of housekeeping matters. Please take note of emergency exits. In an emergency, please find your way to one of those exits. Our assembly point is on the lawn outside the front door main entrance on 3rd Avenue. There is a parents' room out the back, should that be helpful. And if everyone could have your phones to silent, much appreciated. It now gives me great pleasure to invite Dr. David Tweed, Chair of the BTI's Board of Directors, to speak. David, welcome and thank you.
Ka rōria ki te mātua nui te rangi, mangarongo ki rungi te mātua o te whenua, whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Ko te kupu tuatahi ka tuku ki tō tātou kaihanga, ko ia rā te timatanga me te whakamutunga o ngā mea katoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I started by saying, glory to God in the highest, and peace on earth, goodwill to all people. Let's start our proceedings by giving an acknowledgement to the Creator, who is the reason that we're here and who made us who we are. Welcome everyone, I'm Dr. David Tweed, and I grew up in the Bay of Plenty actually, but I don't live here. I went to school in Otamaitai, but I now reside in Palmerston North, and I do have the privilege of leading the board of directors here at BTI. I think it would be good to start by acknowledging a few important people. So first of all, welcome, now get this right, I think, Mokohiti Brown. Thank you for being here. He's from Ngāti Kahu and the Wairoa Marae. And to you and to the local iwi, I just want to say how important it is to us that we have a local partnership with the people, the tangata whenua, the people, the mana whenua, the people that are residing here. And it's more than just a partnership. I think we share a joint desire to be generational in what we do. So it's not just about us, but we're thinking about the ones that are coming after us, how we can make an investment so that, who knows, some of those little ones that are coming through could be leaders of the future. And why not? So we're especially interested in partnering with you to develop servant leaders, people who are other focused and who don't just do this for themselves, but for the ones that they serve. So thank you for being here today. Much appreciated. I also wanted to acknowledge Hui Kākahu Kawe. We've now been walking on this journey for every year. We're still here.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. Do you wake up in the morning sometimes and say, Lord, I've got another day? Yeah, me too. So I want to thank you, and I just want to honour you too, because I'm very impressed with your long service and faith and your passion for the things of God, of Ihu Karaiti, is very clear, and you never pull back from that. And I just think it's amazing that we have a treasure person like yourself that actually works with us. Thank you. I also want to welcome Chris Clark, who is the CEO of the Wilberforce Foundation. And I've started to get to know you more recently, Chris. We met at one of the Wilberforce functions, and I've seen you in one or two other spots. And I think I'm looking forward to what you've got to share with us today. Chris, from what I have seen, carries a passion for Jesus. You've got an authentic faith, Chris, and this idea of how can I help to grow other things, not just my own thing, which I think is fantastic. So it's lovely to have you here, and we look forward to hearing from you today. Of course, the reason for the occasion is the graduates. And I want to say it's actually wonderful to be here on your graduation day, 1 year delayed as it is. So you got the certificate. You probably framed that up, but you thought, but what I didn't get was the ceremony, the closure, the affirmation, the handshake, the photo. Well, here we are today with you and your family and your friends. And so to all of our graduates, this is a day of celebration. And we're here to witness this and enjoy it with you. So today we celebrate, in fact, 91 graduates, of whom 58 have decided not to come here, but they are with us in spirit, and so that's wonderful. Thank you to the board of directors, and one of my fellow directors is here, Johnny Boom. We actually do a lot of work behind the scenes that the students don't see, but it's really part of our role to make sure that the conditions are right for strong Christian-based education that grows professionals who can stand with anyone in the country with real competence, with real impact, and who carry something into their places of work that is transformational, not just a job. So that matters to us as a board. Also the CET I've got behind me here, to this side. Two members from the CET, including our chair, Peter Hayward. And one of the things I just want to note and want to publicly note is that BTI operates within the mandate that the CET has set up. And in particular, Peter, I want to say thank you for the ongoing encouragement and support that the CET has invested in us with respect to research. And so the CET has said, hey, we want to be at the forefront of knowledge, particularly on Christian education, and we are going to put legs on that. So there's funding that goes with it to support a research agenda as to how we can actually have an integrated, holistic perspective rather than this sort of artificial, we're a professional over here and we're a Christian somewhere else. So much appreciated, Peter. Look, the staff have been acknowledged already, but there's no way you'd be here without their efforts, and you demonstrate the values that we cherish, and putting Christ at the centre of life as opposed to just having him at the side. So thank you for that. Thank you for the heart you bring to your work. And I want to note too, Andrew Butcher, who's just, we've been kept apart today, but apparently we'll be sitting together tomorrow. And so I don't know whether that's a message or not, but it is a joy to work with you, Andrew. Andrew was a tremendous find for us, and the way that you bring together your experience in leading people in spiritual formation and in teaching and research, it is a privilege to be in partnership with you in this great endeavour. So thank you. Look, the reason we're here, of course, is to celebrate those who are graduating. So to our graduates, no doubt, when you began, you started with a great hope, perhaps even a vision of the future, or maybe you just wish to explore what study might do for you and in terms of opening doors, opportunity and effectiveness. You're here today because you engaged in the program of study, you worked to meet the requirements, and you responded to the feedback of your teachers, whether or not it was wanted. You laughed, you cried, you dreamed of great highs, and then dealt with the reality of challenging lows. I know this because I've done a number of degrees, and so I'm not being disingenuous. But in the achievement of any great dream, there are always challenges and problems to solve. So is anybody thinking I'm right? Yes. And so, but you persevered, and by God's grace you are here today. The work is done, the standards are met, and you're about to join your respective professional communities. I want to say you made a great choice to study at BTI. BTI has had its excellence as a tertiary institution recognised in a recent external evaluation review, and once again, NZQA is rating us with high marks, highly confident in our educational performance, highly confident in our capability in actually having a realistic and proper assessment of ourselves. But there's another great reason that you made a good choice, and that is, it was here that you learned it is possible to be a Christian in the world of work, to hold strong values, to integrate those values into professional practice. In other words, to be a whole person, not a compartmentalised one. You learned that the core of who you are informs the value you place on others, how you choose to serve them, and that this service can be offered as service to the Lord. We know that you will do great things as you serve as teachers, counsellors, and educators in wherever God takes you. So I'd like to add my congratulations to those that have already been offered, and there'll be plenty more today. Say, well done. And from now on, where you take this gift that we have given you in terms of helping you to find your sense of self and how you can express that through professional practice to actually do something, make a difference in this world, is for you to do from now on. But for today, let's celebrate. God bless you.
We join together to sing our national anthem. It is more than just our national song. It is a way of affirming that we are one people from many backgrounds and places. It is a rousing prayer for unity and protection, and it is a declaration that we meet here today in the presence of God. We will sing selected verses. Please look to the screen for the words, and I invite you to stand. Please be seated. It gives me great pleasure to invite Dr. Andrew Butcher, the Tai Urungi, or Rudder of BTI, to the podium. Andrew, thank you.
Kia ora tātou, ko rangi tuhi te maunga, ko kene peru te awa no te whanganui a tara ahou, ko Butcher toko whanau, ko Andrew toko ingoa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Tēnā koe hui kākahu kawe, ko mātua. Tēnā koe Motohiti Brown from Ngāti Kahu. Tēnā koe Dr. David Tweed, Chairman of the BTI Board of Directors. Tēnā koe Peter Hayward, Chairman of the Christian Education Trust. Tēnā koe Chris Clark, CEO of the Wilberforce Foundation. Tēnā koe Dr. Marion Sanders, Head of the School of Teacher Education. Tēnā koe Dr. James Arkwright, Head of the School of Social Practice. Tēnā koe Dr. Vicky Turner, Academic Dean. Tēnā koe current and former BTI staff. Tēnā koe graduands and your whānau. Tēnā koe distinguished guests. Tēnā koe ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It's a great pleasure to have you here at today's graduation ceremony. For you, our graduates, I want to acknowledge that we'd all hoped to be here in this place last year to confer your degrees, but it was not to be. Instead, like much of the world was then, and in many parts remains, we were not able to meet as we'd have liked. And so I'm grateful that you've decided to come back to mark your successes some 18 months after you left your time at BTI. You enter the professions of counselling, social work and teaching, very different to what they were when you began your studies with us. The word unprecedented was used a lot about COVID-19. We might say it was used an unprecedented amount. But its overuse does signal something of truth. The world has changed, and for you, your absence from this auditorium a year ago was one small but significant disruptive marker of the global upheaval of the coronavirus. And so today we celebrate with you especially. A delayed celebration is no less a celebration. And as last year we posted you your degrees, which I'm sure are now framed pride of place in your houses or perhaps those of your parents or loved ones, you'll have one less thing to carry out from this place, you'd think. But you are getting something. You wait and see. But in addition to what we are giving you today, I hope you do also carry the honour, respect, pride, goodwill and prayers of all of us, your whānau and your educators, on a job well done. BTI succeeds in part because of our enduring partnerships with like-minded organisations, and one of those is the Wilberforce Foundation, who we are glad to have support the work of BTI. We are delighted that my friend Chris Clark is with us today. Chris, we are very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I want to briefly address two groups. The first is to the BTI staff. Over the last year, initiatives that might normally have taken months or years in the planning were developed and implemented at lightning speed, in some cases literally overnight. We found new ways of doing things and, in some cases, decided to keep them that way. All these new ways of operating required a great deal of you. It was not always straightforward, nor without stress. But you worked very hard under the water to keep the BTI ship sailing smoothly and on its course. Today is as much about triumph in your persistence, endurance and influence as it is about conferring the qualifications on our graduates. You will well remember fresh-faced new students arriving, and for some perhaps wondering if they'd make it through to the end. But you saw their strength where they did not. You saw their potential where they did not. You saw their possibility where they did not. And you pushed and you prodded and you prayed, and the success of these graduates is your success as well. More than that, as we as a small community faced what the world faced in COVID-19, you demonstrated all the attributes of a fine team. You pulled together and not apart. You showed empathy and not entitlement. You were generous and not precious with your time. You remained committed to the cause to which we have been called, and you saw goodness where others saw grief, light where others saw darkness, hope where others saw despair. I firmly believe that we are only ever as good as the people we work with, and you are all very good indeed. While there are sometimes good reasons we don't highlight individual contributions because the team is always stronger than one person, this is not one of those occasions. I'm going to make an exception because I can. I want today to commend one of our colleagues who over 30 years ago committed to follow the call to contribute to the Bethlehem campus and did so first at Bethlehem College as a foundation staff member and then as a foundation staff member of what is now BTI. Though small in stature, she is a giant in Christian education. A life member of the New Zealand Association of Christian Schools, BTI's inaugural head of School of Teacher Education, a significant leader in the Presbyterian Church of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and a wise, astute, prayerful woman of God and a fine colleague. I am, of course, talking about Dr. Marion Sanders, who is retiring. And in acknowledging Marion, I also want to acknowledge her husband, Laurie. She would be the first to say, as we all do, that she couldn't do this without you. And while for Marion, that retirement will mean more time in the garden and with her family, we also know that it's bound to include leadership in new and different ways, mentoring others perhaps, and certainly praying for them. Rumour has it she may even be teaching the citizenship paper in semester 2 at BTI and continuing to keep her hand in Christian education in the Pacific. So she will not, I am glad to say, be disappearing altogether. There is a saying that great leaders plant trees under whose shade they know they will never sit. To that end, if you are someone here whose life has been influenced by Marion in ways great or small, can I please invite you to show your appreciation to her for her good and faithful service, Marion. Now to our graduates. Congratulations, you made it. Now the real work begins. As you embark on the next adventure in your professional and personal lives, let me suggest to you some resources that may be helpful for you to take on your journey. The first, deepest, and most important resource you have is the Christian faith. If you are already a Christian, you will know that there is no greater companion to have than Christ. You will also know that this will stretch you in every way possible, you will grow deep, and you will be transformed. If you do not have this faith, if you have not yet plunged the refreshing well that is an intimate relationship with God, if you have not yet experienced the healing and restorative work of the Holy Spirit, if you have not yet encountered Jesus Christ as he's opened your eyes to his word, then my encouragement to you is that you seek God out and know that you will find him. It will be the best discovery you will ever make. The second important resource you have is you. Your formal education may now be finished, but never stop learning, never stop reading, never stop listening. Always be curious, always ask questions. Develop empathy and understanding, especially for those with whom you do not agree. Be patient with yourselves and with others. The third resource you have are those around you, whether whānau, colleagues, friends, bosses, pastors, or teachers. Often God puts people around us to teach us the very things we need to learn. So learn from them. Help them grow you and let them show you what you do not yet see for yourselves. You may not think it at the time, but you will thank them later on. The fourth resource is this cohort of graduates, your classmates, those you laughed with, wept with, compared notes with, lent books to, borrowed books from and forgot to return, sat in the library with, drank coffee with, and shared your BTI experience with. These days will not come again. Treasure them. Hold on to the friendships that you've made. You will need them when the going gets tough. Remember why you chose to study what you did. That will be your light in dark places. And know that those who are in the foxhole with you know what it's like. And even if it felt that you were alone, you never were. Because next time you're in a foxhole, you'll know who to turn to. With these four resources, you will be equipped for whatever lies ahead of you. So my congratulations to you once again. You have much to be proud of. Your families and whānau are proud of you, and we are proud of you. Nō reira, whae ati i te kaharangi ki te toho koe mi he maunga te te. Seek the treasure that you value most deeply. If you bow your head, let it be to a lofty mountain. Thank you.
We come now to the actual ceremony. As these graduates have already received their awards, they will be congratulated by our tai urungi and have a small gift given to them by their program leader. Those who couldn't make it to Tauranga today will be recognised in absentia. We invite you to join with us to celebrate the success of all here, and you are welcome to cheer for your graduate and to honour them with cultural performances as is unique to your culture. This is a distinctive feature of the BTI graduation, which we welcome and will take time to enjoy. We encourage you and your whānau to express your joy.
It's just so exciting. Sorry. For 4 years, BTI has been offering the Level 4 Introduction to Tertiary Study course, the New Zealand Certificate in Study and Career Preparation. This 60-credit course, typically undertaken over 6 months, covers the skills necessary for tertiary study, exploring those things that influence our faith, influence study, such as culture, faith, and communication. It also gives students the chance to experience life as a teaching, social work or counselling student with relevant readings to interact with, as well as practical experience in their field of choice. This Level 4 course is specifically designed to provide the hesitant student with increased skills and experience, enabling them to succeed at tertiary level with greater levels of confidence and capability. We have pleasure in presenting the following graduates of the New Zealand Certificate in Study and Career Preparation Level 4 in absentia: Belinda Jane Clark, Maria Mandy Cleland, Christine Chanel Don. Oh, is she? Achal Kumar, Alicia Faye Parrott, Timothy Charles Price, Emma Jane Stewart.
Kia ora tātou. Would the early childhood teaching degrees graduates now move to the room on the right, please? It's a joy too for us to celebrate the graduation of early childhood educators who have a commitment to the BTI values of relational, responsive and transformative education with the young children in their care. The Bible teaches, and therefore not surprisingly the research is very clear, that the very first years of a child's life are foundational to the rest of their life. Typically, the advantages and disadvantages which are present at age 5 may have strong consequences throughout the rest of their life. We have pleasure in presenting the following graduates of the Bachelor of Education Teaching in Early Childhood Education: Cherie Kathleen Savage, Ludia Yoon, in absentia, Jessica Grace Benton, and with distinction, Amber Rose Gooding. Would the primary teaching degree graduates now move to the room on the right, please? Our aspiration as teacher educators is the development of graduates who are wise educators, gracious, secure, and teachable, and whose teaching is relational, responsive, and transformative. This has long been our key motto, and these graduates will recognise it and possibly recite it in their sleep. In graduating them, we are affirming that they have shown this fruit in their personal and their professional lives. We celebrate today that they are people of grace who have a security about who they are and a teachable openness to feedback and new learning. Graduates of BTI's teacher education programs are known for their ability to ask the question why, to reflect on their decision-making and their practice in order to improve the students' learning. All our programs have approval to be offered by distance delivery to students throughout New Zealand, and this opens access to people who cannot or prefer not to relocate, and equips them with professional vocational education from a Christ-following, faith-informed, hope-inspired and love-motivated foundation from which to serve wherever God calls them. So today we have the pleasure in presenting the following graduates of the Bachelor of Education, Teaching in Primary Education. Jennifer Margaret May Barlow. Kerry Ann Bernard. With distinction, Evelyn Rose Bruce. Victoria Jane Cullen. Emily Christine Dixon. Hannah Ivy Reed Hockley. Jessica Grace Taylor. Tessa Denise Wood. In absentia, Barbara Ann Cook with distinction, and with distinction, Courtney Page Smith. Would the secondary teaching graduates move to the side room on the right, please? The Graduate Diploma of Teaching Secondary prepares graduates to teach in the diverse range of secondary schooling contexts within Aotearoa, New Zealand, and internationally. This group of graduates have all previously gained a tertiary level degree, and students study through 1-year full-time program or 2-year part-time program, which has a blended learning approach. They come to our program from throughout the country or internationally, undertaking their study through an innovative combination of online study, intensives held here in Tauranga, and practical experiences in a range of secondary school contexts within their own geographical area. We have pleasure in presenting the following graduates of the Graduate Diploma of Teaching Secondary. Simon Jude Thaddeus Peterson. Craig Alexander Scott. Our secondary graduates are highly rated, and the post-study employment rate exceeds the national average. Graduates have identified 3 specific ways they felt BTI had prepared them successfully for their teaching career. Firstly, our students appreciated educators who cared about them as people and provided the emotional, spiritual, and academic support needed to succeed and define their vision. Secondly, students felt prepared for future leadership opportunities because of the unique learning focus, context, and environment they experienced. And thirdly, they highlighted the benefit of what we call the host school experience. This enables the student, in addition to their 2-block professional practice experiences, to be based in a school throughout the year and consequently experience the rhythms of the school year through a teacher's lens. So we have pleasure in presenting the following graduates of the Graduate Diploma of Teaching Secondary in absentia. With distinction, Zoe Heather Visvanathan. Kirimatau Tani Ahumiro. Amy Michelle Greta Berens. Andrew David Bloomfield with distinction. Olivia Teresa Fernandez. Craig Xavier Francois. Brian Cameron Haggett with distinction. Sally Louise Hayward. Lorraine Althea Henry. With distinction, Beth Abigail Hoffman. Elisha Na Otala Houghton. Jiong Ai Jin. June Sung Lee. With distinction, Philippa Margaret McCormick, Charlotte Vera Maney, Ian Andrew Palco, Matthew John Pickering, Sonia Sangwan, Jessica Rochelle Seed, Hannah Rose Segafreud, Joseph Clarence Thomas, Matthew John Tyrrell, Tale Christina Wurenrate.
It is my privilege to invite our guest speaker, Chris Clark from the Wilberforce Foundation, to the podium. Chris Clark has had over 25 years leadership experience locally and globally in public policy, healthcare, humanitarian development, and the philanthropic sectors. Currently, he is the CEO of the Wilberforce Foundation and Executive Chair of the Arrow Leadership Program. Previously, Chris was CEO of World Vision New Zealand and CEO Hawke's Bay District Health Board. He has also worked for the World Health Organisation Europe, the National Health Service Wales, and in several health sector roles in Aotearoa. Chris holds law and commerce degrees from Canterbury University and since 2009 has been the inaugural Praxis Visiting Scholar at Green Templeton College, Oxford University. He is a recognised public speaker, has highly developed communications and influencing skills, and regularly appears in the media. Welcome, Chris.
Kia ora tātou. The question that you might be asking, because I know I am asking, is will the hat stay on throughout this address? We will soon find out. It is such a pleasure to be here this afternoon and such an honour to be asked to speak to you as graduates, because today is truly a celebration. Now I understand I think this is the third attempt to get you together to actually have the celebration, and most and many of you have actually moved on into new roles in all different parts of New Zealand, but don't let that deny this particular moment. You see, in New Zealand society, we have very few rites of practice. And this is one of those rites of passage that we celebrate with you today. Recognising that it is no solo achievement already been spoken of is the fact that while you've been studying, others have made quite considerable sacrifices on your part. And so to those of you in the support team sitting out there today, an equal celebration to you. And may tonight's celebrations continue long into the night. I also want to pick up on those of you who've had to study with young children, who have studied part-time. And of course, for many of you, life didn't stop while you studied. Things happened. Some of those things weren't necessarily good or happy things, and yet somehow or other you managed to juggle that. Or even at the most simple level, when it came to Friday night and sitting down with some takeaways and watching Netflix, you'd have to excuse yourself from the family and say, look, I've got to do some more study. And there'd be a collective groan from your partners and from your children or from your extended family. So to each one of you, the graduates, to the support crew, to those who can't be here today, celebrate the moment, for truly it is a very, very special occasion. And don't let the challenges of tomorrow, the worries of today, rob you of something of the significance of what indeed you're celebrating. Now, I can remember my graduation. It was many years before, in fact, some of you were born, I reckon. And I graduated from university with a couple of degrees with a huge enthusiasm to change the world. I very quickly learned that enthusiasm and an ambition to change the world wasn't going to be quite enough. So instead, what I want to share with you is a modern-day parable. It's a modern-day parable of what sometimes happens next. And the great thing about this modern-day parable is it also happens to be true. And the even greater thing about this modern-day parable is it's about a boat race between a New Zealand boat and an Australian boat. And in this particular case, the New Zealand boat won. So let me take you to 1995. And it was a boat race off the coast of San Diego. And it was a duel between Australia and New Zealand. And whoever won this race would go on to contest the America's Cup. Now, the New Zealand boat, the Black Magic boat, and think of Peter Blake and people like that, we thought, as good New Zealanders, was the firm favourite. In fact, we were up against a much better boat, seemingly, a much better crew, a much more experienced skipper, and a much bigger budget in the form of the One Australia boat. That was skippered by John Bertrand. Now, John Bertrand was significant in the world of sailing because he was the first person ever to actually win the America's Cup off the Americans. He'd done that in 1983 and then promptly retired. He was talked out of retirement to come back and win it back from the Americans in 1995. So I want you to imagine the boat race day. It's actually miserable weather. And in fact, both the New Zealanders and Australians went to the race crew and said, look, we don't think we should race. It's far too rough. But the Judicial Committee said, race is on. So the race started. And what I'm going to do, it's a very short race. I'm going to pick up on Peter Montgomery's commentary on the boat. And the race starts. The New Zealand boat is just slightly ahead. And then Peter Montgomery says, there's a problem on One Australia. The rigging's gone slack. There's a problem on One Australia. Quick, get off. The boat is turning into a banana. The America's Cup answer to the Titanic. It's going, it's going, it's going, it's gone. What had gone? Well, the One Australia boat. It had literally split in half and sank to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, where I understand it still lies today. Now, why am I sharing that rather dramatic story with you? Well, for lots of reasons. For those of you who enjoy sailing, and particularly those of you who enjoy sailing and beating the Australians, that is just enough to take home with you today. But for those of you who actually studied, there's a deeper, perhaps, reason why I want to share that particular story with you. And that is this. Why did one boat sink and one boat in exactly the same conditions continue on and complete the race? Well, first of all, to the boat that sank, One Australia. It was an extraordinary boat. And as I said, John Bertrand was given an unlimited budget. He could hire the best crew. He had the latest technology. He had the best sails. He had won the America's Cup. But this mistake was made even before the boat hit the water. And what was that mistake? The mistake was this, that he'd designed a boat for 95% of the sailing conditions that he would encounter off the coast of San Diego. But what happens when we sail in the 99% of sailing conditions? And what happened quite simply was his boat wasn't up to it. And it sank, and it was described afterwards in the inquiry that followed as a fair weather boat, not built for the conditions. But the New Zealand boat, a slightly stronger boat, thus a slightly slower boat, actually was built for the conditions and went on to win that race. Why do I think it's a modern day parable for a whole bunch of graduates called to celebrate this extraordinary rite of passage? Well, for this simple reason. It is that you have taken your little boat and you've launched it into the sea, many of you about a year ago, and you're now heading out on your chosen path and on your chosen vacation. But the question is, what will happen next? And it strikes me that as graduates, you face a particular challenge. And this is the challenge. The world around you will judge your success by externalities. In other words, those things above the waterline, your career advancement, the people you hold out with, the kind of house, well, if you can ever buy a house these days, the kind of house you might end up living in, the car you drive, the company you keep, the things you do with your time. But there's a much deeper conversation going on. And that conversation is about the keel of your life, that part of your life which nobody else ever sees. Because it was the keel that sank One Australia, because it wasn't strong enough for the conditions. Now, for many of us to this point, we've been able to sail through life without much of a keel. But as we've seen with COVID-19, and as you have personally experienced, you will sail probably for the rest of your life in the 99% of conditions. So your keel needs to be incredibly strong for the race that lies ahead. And what is it about a keel that is so important? The thing that nobody sees below the waterline. Well, it's the keel that gives you strength. It's the keel that gives you direction. It's the keel that gives you manoeuvrability. Now, I mentioned that I graduated with a couple of degrees at a Canterbury University and a great enthusiasm to change the world, and learned very quickly that it was going to be a lot harder than I initially thought. Also, in hindsight, when I look back, I realised that my keel was never strong enough to actually sustain the race that I'd entered. That, like so many, I was putting great store on the quality of my degree, the job I was getting, the income I was earning, my career progression, and so on. And I simply thank the Lord that the storms that later came in my life actually happened later in my life when that keel was a little bit stronger than it was when I left university. But it does beg the question, can we, mid-race, or even at the beginning of the race, strengthen our keel? And this is the good news. Yes, we can. And what does that involve? Well, speaking personally, what it's involved for me is never, ever, ever neglecting my faith. You have chosen a particular race to enter, which has people of God being people of God in your professions. Never, ever, ever neglect your first love. Never let your career advancement be at the cost of your relationship with the Lord. That is something of your keel. But secondly, it's about the people around you. As I've sailed into some quite considerable storms over time, I've realised it's my family, it's my friends who've stood with me. And it's been the depth of those relationships which has perhaps mattered the most. Thirdly, when you're sailing a boat, it's terribly tempting, particularly when you see storms coming your way, to sail conservatively. It's not always the helpful thing to do. One of the things that I've found very helpful in strengthening my keel is actually taking risks. Sometimes I've capsized, but I've somehow or other popped up again and kept on sailing. And that's given me the strength to realise that actually nothing will ever separate me from the love of God. In terms of strengthening my keel, it's meant moral courage. Those simple words, what is the right thing to do? And understanding that that is an ethical and moral judgment that each one of you is called to. It's meant keeping that initial passion that I had to change the world, nurturing it, as naive as it might be, in the deep belief that actually I'm not called just to serve my needs, but in many ways that it is no longer I that am living, but the Lord that is living in me. Now the storms will come. Team New Zealand encountered exactly the same rough weather that One Australia encountered. In my own life, we've known all sorts of storms. I've shown a remarkable propensity to lose almost as many jobs as I've gained. When I worked in the health board, I regularly received death threats, which was a tad challenging. Fortunately, none of them were particularly successful. But we've had setbacks, and U-turns and mistakes along the way. But the extraordinary thing through all of that is just a deep and profound belief that I haven't sailed alone. The Lord has sailed with me through the rough weather as well as the smooth, but that keel has sustained me. It's given me that sense of direction. It's given me that sense of purpose in a deep and profound way, knowing that I am deeply loved. That is the keel that will sustain you wherever your journey as professionals take you. Now, to conclude, one of the challenges of being introduced is you barely recognise yourself. And in that introduction, I was trying to remember which part of that introduction I wrote and which part was written by somebody else. The thing is, when you listen to an introduction like that, it all sounds so carefully planned. Indeed, my experience of my sailing race has been of a very accidental career, which has taken me through health policy, it's taken me into healthcare, it's taken me internationally, it's taken me into the most profound work I ever did as a humanitarian worker with World Vision, and now working in the field of philanthropy and in the field of leadership development. There was no grand plan on my part. When I graduated from university, I didn't have a map of what the world would look like for me. Similarly, I haven't carefully curated my brand or had KPIs or indeed 5-year goals. And I think most of us these days don't have that kind of master plan. And you know what? That is the most exciting thing. Because instead what we're saying is we want a journey with the Lord, day by day. And we will go where he takes us. Now, I have the advantage of being able to look back on a career, because I'm quite a lot older than most of you, and actually to see God's hand in all of that in a way that I could never have stitched it together. But have that deep sense that actually, in a strange way, he has made me for the very purpose I am today. That will be your experience. So do not sweat it too much in terms of what the Lord has for your life. Simply live and celebrate the very day that he is giving you. But it would be wrong of me to conclude at just that point. There have been many nights when I've sat wide awake in my bed, berating the Lord, saying, Lord, what do you want me to do? Where should I go next? It's the question that all of us will ask, even if we affirm in our vocation. So can I leave you with just 6 very quick dot points, questions that I've found incredibly helpful as I've tried to wrestle through that deep question of, Lord, what would you have me do? Not just in my professional life, but also in my personal life. And what are those 6? The first is actually to remember what I dreamed of when I was a boy. In other words, when there were no responsibilities, when I didn't know what a mortgage was, when I wasn't married, when I didn't have children, when I didn't have the pressures of the day. What were those pure, unalloyed dreams that I had for my life? Harken back to those dreams and ask yourself, would your 8-year-old self recognise where you stand today? It was the main reason that I turned down an international role to go to work for World Vision New Zealand. I thought there was something of the 8-year-old boy who wanted to change the world that was actually reflected in that World Vision job. Secondly, and critically importantly, it is to recognise the season of life that we're in. We have to get practical. The reality is, it's incredibly hard to go to work for World Vision in Mali when you've got 2 children under 2. So recognise and accept the fact that actually there will be a season of life. You have just celebrated a very important season, which is the season of study, and for some of you it will continue. But whatever you do, fully live that season, and don't seek to live outside of that season. Thirdly, ask yourself, what costs or what price am I willing to pay to pursue this deep sense of calling? For you will be called to pay a price. Foxes have holes, the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Fourthly, and incredibly importantly, do ask your friends what they think. I was weighing up a very attractive job at one stage and this other job, and I mentioned it to my friends, and all my friends and family said, Chris, you're tailor-made for that other job. I didn't want to do that job. I wanted to do the glamorous one. But actually, I realised in some ways my friends and my family knew me a lot better than I knew myself. So this is one thing where you can actually crowdsource your vocation. Do listen to your family and your friends. Often they have insight and wisdom well beyond anything that we can see ourselves. A question that I ask a lot, and having listened to that introduction, I'm going to ask myself even more, who am I? Critical to your understanding of vocation and what next looks like is understanding who am I as a person. How has God knit me together in my mother's womb? That's a journey of a lifetime. But I hope your great joy, and it may indeed take the storms of life to discover this joy, is that actually God is not especially interested in what you are doing. He is deeply and passionately committed to what you're becoming. But more than that, not only does he love you, but that he likes you. You see, we live in a society where we're robbed of our own company. So maybe by spending time in our own company, we might also learn to like ourselves. So that question, who am I? And then lastly, what am I most afraid of? If the first question is, what do I dream of as an 8-year-old boy or an 8-year-old girl? What am I most afraid of? Because it's that fear that will set you back from fully living life and fully realising that vocation. So let me return to the beginning. Celebrate today. It is one of the rare rites of passage that you'll enjoy with your extended whānau and family and friends. It is truly a wonderful thing. Think about your little boat that you've launched into the sea of life and ask yourself, is your keel strong enough to withstand the storms that will inevitably come, recognising that you're the generation that will increasingly sail in the 99%, not the 95%. As you think through this, think deeply about your calling. Set aside the fears. Think deeply about who you are. Think deeply about your passions. Think deeply about what your friends say, and be willing to take a few risks. But above all, enjoy the sailing. You're setting out on the most amazing adventure of your life. And here is the most wonderful thing. You will not sail alone, and your Lord will never, ever let you go. Amen.
Thank you, Chris. As the Apostle Paul said in the early years of the church, one person plants a seed, another waters, but it is God who brings the growth. We are grateful to be a part of the growth process of these graduates. So, shall we stand together for a song that reminds us to bless our God who is rich in love? However difficult the journey has been for you, God has been faithful and you have made it. That is one reason out of 10,000 to bless the Lord. Please, can we stand? Please be seated.
We are now awarding the School of Social Practice qualifications. And I invite the graduates for the Diploma of Family Support and the Diploma of Counselling to move to the side room, please. The Counsellor Education Program staff go to wherever these students are located, from the far north to the deep south, and visit them in their practicum placement. From the inception of the Counselling Distance Program, we have always viewed our distance students as God's beacons spread throughout the country, benefiting from the personal transformation that has occurred for them as they have undertaken their study, positively impacting their families and communities and working to make a difference. We have pleasure in presenting the following graduates of the Diploma of Family Support: Elma Christine Jones. In absentia, Jodie Michelle Ainsworth, Claire Arnold. Would the Bachelor of Counselling degree graduates please move to the side room? As already stated, the majority of students in the counselling degree and diploma programs study at a distance. They come from all over Aotearoa, New Zealand, to join the local students each March and August for intensives at our Tauranga Moana campus, whilst at the same time being able to do a practicum close to home. They undertake their practicum working as a student counsellor in a wide variety of settings, such as schools, social service agencies and churches around Aotearoa, New Zealand and abroad. On this journey, they have developed their counselling knowledge and skills to work with individuals, couples and families, equipped to support people in different stages of life and social contexts, and work cross-culturally. We have the pleasure in presenting the following graduates of their Bachelor of Counselling degree: Susan Elizabeth Abernethy. Teresa Mary Bruce. With distinction, Katrina Megan Blanche Klassen. Cherie Ormond. Bronwyn Jennifer Sanford. Sandra Marie Snook. With distinction, Christine Francis North. Over the 3 or 4 years of studying for their counselling degree, or more if they are part-time students, our graduates have not only gained wisdom and knowledge, they become skilled and relational, grown holistically, undertaking the very processes that they will be facilitating for their clients in their professional counselling practice. During the course of undertaking 200 plus counselling hours whilst on practicum, these students have developed both intellectually, emotionally and spiritually, and we are certain that whom they become through their walk with BTI will shine within their professional practice. We have pleasure in presenting the following graduates of the Bachelor of Counselling degree in absentia: Leanne Melanie Bellamy, Catherine Ann Douglas. With distinction, Siobhan Michaelia Friend, Gavin Malcolm Hockley, Bridget Mary Hohepa, Daniel Forbes Jackson, Robert Bruce McGregor, Sarah Ozanne. With distinction, David Joseph Peake, Stefan Peterson, Susan Elizabeth Taylor, Francine Ann Dean McCormick. Would the graduates for the Bachelor of Social Work degree please move to the sign room? The degree for the Bachelor of Social Work marks the successful completion of each student's program, which takes 4 years full-time study or longer for some part-time students. More importantly, for the students, it signifies the development of head, heart and hands, their knowledge, character and skills. The personal transformation over the course of their study and the professional readiness to contribute within their respective contexts affirms our recognition of them as peers in the profession of their choice. We feel blessed to have supported and walked alongside them as they completed a comprehensive program which serves as an entry point to the profession of social work. We have pleasure in presenting the following graduates of the Bachelor of Social Work degree: Carmen Lee Adams, Diane Louise Anderson, With distinction, Fiona Marie Chapman. Enike Jansonius. Cara Lee Grace Kiriwaro.
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom. Kia ora e koe. Tēnā koutou. Kia ora tātou. Nā mihi nui a koutou katoa. Aroha reo. Kia rite. Kia rite. Kia mau! Ringa pakiha. Pakia, pakia. Wawai takehia, hiki no nei hoki. Aha, hiki no nei hoki. Aha, kamate kauraka. Aha, kamate kauraka. O te mei te tangata. Huru, huru, hana i tiki mai whakawhiti tera. Oh, hupane, oh, hupane, oh, hupane, whiti tera. Hi.
Helena Casina Paul. With distinction, Michelle Olive Woolley. In absentia, Kelly Ruth Bradshaw with distinction. Suki Alima Linyama. Lupe Liuma Manu. Susan Nahuia Peters. Jenna Lee Ramika. Evangeline Selva Gumaram. Francis William Chaplin with distinction, Queenie Telina Tanginoa, Asua Tiatia.
The Master of Professional Practice degree and Postgraduate Diploma of Professional Practice qualifications are designed for Christ-following professionals such as social workers, counsellors, teachers, lawyers, doctors, occupational therapists, in fact, any people helping professional who understands their practice as missional and transformative. Would the graduates for the Master of Professional Practice make your way to the room on the right, please? Within this program, students explore at an advanced level the intellectual and practical implications of their faith so that within their professional context and community, they can more intentionally be culture shapers and leaders in God's kingdom here on earth. Graduates of this program have completed either a 20,000 or 30,000 word research thesis, the findings of which have the potential to make a significant contribution to their professional sector and in some cases already have done so. And I'm hoping that many of the graduates sitting here will one day join this group. We have pleasure in presenting the following graduates of Master of Professional Practice. Daniela Rodica Brown in Education. Karen Elizabeth Franson. In Education, Gregory Tepore Homaha. Vanessa Jane Miller. In absentia, Catherine Jane Elder in Education, Anthony John G.
It is my pleasure to introduce Daniela Brown, our graduate speaker today. Daniela is a graduate of the Master's Program. She has recently been employed here at BTI as a secondary teacher educator. Born in Romania, Daniela acknowledges the power of testimony and is passionate in equipping others with an awareness of God's hand in their own story. Currently engaged in research, she is inspired by her dream auntie, Brené Brown, and is exploring empowerment in teenagers with regards to teachers' pedagogy. Creativity is in her bloodstream, as is sunshine and shenanigans with friends in her massive whānau. She won't say no to a flat white and is excited to connect with tomorrow's teachers. Daniela.
Oh, kia ora tātou. That was a very non-formal introduction to quite an auspicious occasion, but that's us, isn't it? Let's be real. So from this immigrant to the Indigenous nation here, let me just greet you. Tēnā koutou katoa ko Daniela toko ingoa. No Romania oku tipuna. Ke te noho au ki tauranga, ka nui te mihi kia koutou katoa. Nō reira he waka e ka noa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Well, congratulations to us all, and I know it's only a few short moments you're hoping until we can finally get something of sustenance in us and we can stand up and stretch. But in these next few moments, I just want to unpack, if I had time, I'd sit with you all individually and ask you these two questions. Why did you come here today? And how much has your trajectory shifted in the time you started your studies to here we are standing perhaps even 18 months later than when you thought you would? When we discuss church membership, if I can just put my elder hat on for a moment, we ask the question, why are people not coming to church? But perhaps the biggest question of curiosity should be, why do people choose to come to church? And I'm curious to ask that of all of us, when legitimately we've just had so many in absentia congratulations, and understandably, we wouldn't come to this occasion. So why did we choose to be here? For me, to answer that, I have to show you this outfit. This is donated to me from the Sandu family, Romanian familia, and it's a 200-year-old garment, and it's hand-stitched, and I've been given strict instructions on how not to wear it. And so for me, I don't just represent the participants in my study. I don't just represent Bev Norsworthy, who has taught me how to listen to her, but also to the Holy Spirit. I don't also just represent my students now and the institution I'm blessed to walk through and work at. I also represent all young kids who were born under the communist dictatorship, who were adopted from orphanages in Romania. It is imagining this moment of representation that had me going through the long, hard, isolating epistemological tunnels that contributed to my need for glasses and my new grey hairs. So I ask the question to you again, why did you come to this graduation? The reality of the timing of us completing these studies and our graduation, like we've shared today many times over, is the fact that we have had the implications of the long tail of COVID. It has tattooed many of us with stress, burnout, emotional and compassion fatigue. But I would venture at a guess that the reason why we've chosen to take the time today to march across this stage is to engage in a hopeful resistance against these symptoms and to just perhaps be reminded of the reason why we chose to walk through the doors of academia in the first place. We are, I would venture at a guess, perhaps one of the most unique cohorts ever to graduate. The world looks totally different from the world that we entered into these studies for. If we were to lean into the definition of grit being sustained passion and energy despite obstacles, I'm curious to know the second question. How much has your purpose shifted trajectory under the seismic events that this world has gone through? Nehemiah 6:3 describes an example of unwavering purpose, where people were tearing him down and he was facing opposition. He says in Nehemiah 6:3, they were plotting to harm me. However, he replied, "Oh, I'm engaged in such a great work, I can't come. Why would I stop working to come and meet with you?" Some of us, when we submitted our final assignments in 2019 or 2020, were ready to burst off into the platform and share with the whole world our new knowledge, to, of course, eager ears. However, much like a photograph in a darkroom, our purpose perhaps just needed deeper processing time. If we took that image that had been burnt into us through this institution, through our assignments, through the content, through the teaching, and brought it into the light too soon, perhaps that light, distraction, busyness, burnout, would overcome that image and there would be nothing there of substance. What needed to occur was a longer developing time, the darkroom of lockdown, deeper processing to ensure that what was captured by the camera would remain on paper no matter how bright that light would get, no matter how distracting our platforms would get. Our purpose needed to remain steadfast. And for others, after lockdown, when we were allowed back into society, we moved into catch-up hyperactivity mode, where the long shadow of COVID after lockdown left us with no space to saturate in our purpose. And what occurred instead was the survival mode of just doing, thus enacting that stress burnout cycle. So we've had it called over us a couple of times in the addresses today, but I would challenge those of us who are sitting under that mantle of exhaustion to return to that first love of why did we undertake our studies in the first place. In the Bible, there are many moments where seasons of hardship and suffering were united under the Holy Spirit and God's anointing and the presence of God, and that was symbolized by an altar. This graduation is a stunning altar, a moment to remember, to acknowledge, to thank, and to recognize the shoulders that we've been standing on to get here. And for me, I really sense the strong urgency to release this crown of victory, give it back to Jesus, because I recognize that He is the only reason why I have completed this. He's the only reason why I was protected while being born in a Romanian political prison, why I survived 3 years in an orphanage, why I was released into the loving care of my family here in New Zealand, why I was called to walk through these doors at BTI. He is the only reason that stirring within me is the call to create safe spaces for young people in our classrooms. He's the only reason why I'm able to realize what burnout and stress might look like and take steps to alleviate those symptoms. Returning to the example of Nehemiah, of deep, unwavering purpose, I need to share with us all that this graduation is not the end of our journey. The hardest part is now, to fight for our purpose, fight for why you did the thing, and the perseverance to say no to distractions and cling to the real yes. Kia kaha, kia maia, kia mana wanui. Be brave, be steadfast, be willing. Kia ora.
As a staff, we would now like to sing our blessing over these graduates as they continue on their professional journeys.
But I invite you all to stand for the benediction. Let's pray. Lord, for the years your love has kept and guided, urged and inspired us, cheered us on our way, sought us and saved us, pardoned and provided. Lord of the years, we bring our thanks today. Lord, for that word, the word of life which fires us, speaks to our hearts and sets our souls ablaze, teaches and trains, rebukes us and inspires us. Lord of the word, receive your people's praise. Lord, for our world when we disown and doubt him, loveless in strength and comfortless in pain, hungry and helpless, lost indeed without him, Lord of the world, we pray that Christ may reign. Lord, for ourselves, in living power remake us, self on the cross and Christ upon the throne, past put behind us, for the future take us, Lord of our lives, to live for Christ alone. Amen.
We'll walk the land with hearts on fire, and every step will be a prayer. Hope is rising, a new day dawning, sound of singing fills the air. 2,000 years, and still the flame is burning bright across the land. Hearts are waiting, longing, aching for awakening once again. Let the flame burn brighter in the heart of the darkness, turning night to glorious day. Let the song grow louder as our love grows stronger. Let it shine. Let it shine. We'll walk for truth, speak out for love. In Jesus' name, we shall be strong to lift the fallen, to save the children, to fill the nation with your song. Let the flame burn brighter in the heart of the darkness, turning night to glorious day. Let the song grow